All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try to make a video. I've already tried to make this once, but it kind of turned into like, a rambling mess. My thoughts on this are very fresh and intricate and a little bit personal. Like close to my heart, personal, if you want to think of it that way. I've discovered after recording the other video that the respawns out here are so quick that I kind of have to be a bit careful. All right, so let's talk about it. So, I've been making a couple videos basically critiquing other paladins' ideas on the forums. Turns out that the forum post that I ended up basically becoming... To me, I always seemed like a Tasmanian devil from Looney Tunes, trying to read other people's ideas in the game. As I get more and more passionate and more frustrated, like... Jeez. All right, but there's a few things that I think are important to know when it comes to game development and idea generation in general, okay, for like good ideas. So if you go to the forums, the one thing that you're always going to find is you're always going to find people who have no shortage of what they think are really good ideas for the game. All right. Now, what I'm about to say is going to start off sounding bad, but it's the truth and it needs to be said. Just know that by the time I'm done talking, it's not going to be anywhere near as bad. Okay? Like that's how I'm gonna do this. Okay. So, there are only two types of game developers, effectively, or I should say, people who have ideas about how to make game better. They only come in two types, okay? There's theoretically a magical, mythical third type that I don't think has ever existed in the entire history of humanity. But they only come in two types. The first type is a human being who can easily see ways that the game could be made better, but they are unable to see how their ideas will make the game worse or are basically terrible. All right? So that's personality type 1. Personality type 2 are people who can come up with a bunch of ideas about how to make the game better, but they can also see how something silly, like 80 to 90% of those ideas, are actually bad. Okay? Now, here's the fun part. Okay, here's where things get interesting. Because no one in human history has ever been able to come up with an idea ratio any better than basically 80%. Right? So what I'm saying is, the person who cannot see that their ideas are terrible will have a good idea about 80 to 90% of the time, and the people who can see how their ideas are terrible will still only have a good idea once about 80 to 90% of the time. Are you following me on this? So what it means is we very much want to get as many ideas as possible from other human beings, but how do I put this? I suppose what I'm trying to say here is that whether you're dealing with a human being who cannot see how their ideas are bad, or a human being who can see how their ideas are bad, their success rate and therefore the value of their ideas are basically identical. If that makes any sense. So, for example, the best thing you can do, if you're the person, and it should be very easy for you to identify which type of person you actually belong, like which camp you belong in. So if you're the kind of person who can sit there and you can come up with a bunch of ideas, like you come up with 10 ideas really fast, but then you're able to prove to yourself how 90% of those ideas are actually garbage and you only had one actual decent idea, that's actually really good because you belong in the secondary camp. That is the ideal place to be in. If you're the type 2, you're going to find yourself sitting there coming up with 10 ideas and being unable to throw 80 or 90% of them in the dumpster because you're unable to identify how they might be a bad idea. The best thing for this type of person to do as a game designer is to put their ideas out for other people to critique. And specifically, what you are looking for as that type of game designer is you're not looking for people to agree that your ideas are good. You're looking for the guy to come along and absolutely tear them apart, to literally pick up like 80 to 90% of your ideas and throw them in the dumpster, right? You want that guy on your team. You want that guy on your board. That's the guy you're looking to respond to you. Because that's the guy who's actually going to make you avoid doing like nightmare incursions or avoid having bad ideas. There's no way around this. There's no way around this because that mythical game designer who, like, 80% of their ideas are just gold does not exist, right? So if you find yourself as a game developer feeling like 80% of your ideas are valid, know that statistically speaking, you belong in the second camp. And I've been there before, right? When I was younger and I was unable to see how my ideas were terrible, I was in the second camp. But then I started getting smarter and wiser and more experienced, and I'm like, okay, well now I'm kind of in the second camp. So what happened was I looked at this guy's posts, and it turns out he's been on my channel for quite some time. He popped up in the comment section. I was, damn, did I just tear apart a fan on the channel? That feels bad. Out of all of his ideas, about 2 of them were good ideas, worthy of massaging into better ideas, right? So automatically he's already has an 80% decent idea rate, which means that he's probably one of the best people at coming up with ideas that I've ever seen. If that makes sense. So despite the fact that I took 80% of his ideas and threw them in the dumpster, there was enough there for me to go, damn, okay, this guy actually comes up with good ideas. And that's really how you have to look at it, right? Because 80% of them is the minimum of all ideas that are basically going to get chucked into the dumpster. That's how you determine whether someone is good or bad. And I eventually, okay, so the good ideas he had were his Art of War. He had 3 ideas for Art of War. 2 of them were absolutely terrible. 1 of them was actually decent enough and worthy of massaging. And the other idea that he had some other good idea that I can't remember, but the other one that I was kind of able to massage into a decent idea was wanting TBC Reckoning. So do I want to go there first? There's 2 things I want to say. It might be better if I say one of them first before I go there. All right, so we're gonna do a slight tangent, although it is 100% relevant. All right, so when it comes to MMORPGs and game design in general, it is very easy to come up with an idea that you would want to see in the game, right? But know that what you're essentially saying is that me as player type A want to see X ability or thing in the game. This would make the game funner. This would improve the game. Now, know that you belong to about a 20% at most group in the game, especially in an MMORPG. If the game is more specific, so there's less diversity of what human beings find fun in the game, that number can go up. But in an MMORPG, right, you got PvEers, you got PvE, PvP, you got serious PvP, you got casual PvP, you got serious PvE, you've got casual PvE, you got people who want challenge modes, you got people who want the game to be easy, you got explorers, you got socializers, you have all these different groups. And it's very easy for you as one of the players in the group to identify that as this type of player in this game, if you gave us this thing, it would make us happy. That's step 1 to manifesting a decent idea. Step 2 is asking yourself, who would this piss off? Like, in the form of this idea, who would this make angry? And then to ask yourself, how could we massage this idea so that it'll make this player base happy while not making the rest of the player base unhappy? This is an idea that I've expressed before, with me being absolutely baffled how Blizzard could not see ahead of time that Nightmare Incursions would be an absolute disaster. Nightmare Incursions are screaming will make a very specific type of player in Classic WoW happy. Step 1 achieved, but then once we move over to step 2, it's like, okay, well, anybody who's not that player is going to fucking hate this, right? So you failed step 2, basically. The Reckoning proposal, a TBC Reckoning proposal, follows a very similar mechanic here, right? Because it's like, I want TBC Reckoning as opposed to Classic WoW Reckoning. That is a PvE request specifically for prot paladins. That is going to absolutely make PvPers incensed. TBC Reckoning is hot garbage in PvP compared to Classic World of Warcraft Reckoning. It makes Paladin almost unplayable on PvP servers. Because you're just going to get absolutely munched up by rogues and many other classes without a viable rec bomb. It's a terrible, terrible idea. Okay? But, so it passes step 1, it fails step 2, but that leads us back to step 3, which is there any way for us to massage this idea into being into not making a bunch of people unhappy, but still we achieve the goal? And of course, after thinking about it a bit, I was thinking, like, it could be something as easy as while Holy Shield is active, blah, right? And insert blah could take the form of while Holy Shield is active, any melee attack you do has a 10% chance to grant you a Reckoning charge, right? If you wanted to further make it completely useless for PvP, you could link it not only to Holy Shield needing to be active, you could also link it to needing to stand within Consecration. So it could say something like, while Holy Shield is active, every Consecration tick, notice I'm not saying damage, every Consecration tick has a % chance to give you a Reckoning charge, like a 10% chance, a 20% chance, blah, 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 blah. So you could link it to weapon speed, or you could link it to tick. Linking it to Holy Shield achieves a few things. Number 1, it means that you cannot get this ability while using a two-hander, because if you activate Holy Shield and you swap to a two-hander, Holy Shield disappears, so you get no bonus there. It limits it in the sense that it's only a 31 talent point prot paladin that can use the damn thing. And if you wanted to further limit it and make it absolutely, completely effing useless in PvP, you make it incredibly immobile, so now it's only active while you're standing within a Consecration radius, right? So we have achieved giving it to people in we've achieved giving it to people in PvE, but at the same time, we've basically made it completely effing useless in PvP, which frees up room and space for the Classic Reckoning to remain in PvP. So none of this is coming at the expense of Classic Reckoning. You'd of course have to tie it to a rune of some kind, so you can put it on like the Shield Slam rune, right? Shield Slam, the target for X amount of damage, plus blah 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 blah, and oh, by the way, while your Holy Shield is active and while you're standing in Consecration, yada yada yada. TBC Reckoning mode activate, right? Okay, cool. And that is the process that you have to go through for good game design, basically, right? Identify a decent idea that's going to make a player base happy. Check to see if it's who it's going to make unhappy. If it's going to make a bunch of people unhappy, start massaging the damn thing until it ceases to make those groups unhappy. No PvPer in the entire history of the game is actually upset. Am I going to die to a wolf? Is actually upset with giving PvEers like more damage. So if a patch came out tomorrow that said that prop paladins do 10,000 times more DPS in raid, but only in instance content like raid environment, PvPers would not give two shakes of a shit, right? They'd be like, oh, it doesn't affect PvP at all. What the fuck do I care? And that's good game design. Now, the PvEer community might be super pissed off about that because they're now the best tank and the best DPS in the entire game, and they might be able to solo entire raids. But notice that you have not managed to piss off anybody else, which is just an element of good game design there. Yeah, no, it's hard. Like good game development and good game design is hard, but you need to adhere to the formula. And the formula is you have to literally you have to ask a series of questions. Who are we making happy? Who are we making angry? Is there any way for us to make X group happy while avoiding making Y group angry? You literally have to go through that process. And you also have to accept that whether you're the smartest person in the room or whether you're the dumbest person in the room, there's a fascinating thing with game design where 80% of your ideas are going to go into the dumpster. 80% of ideas up and chuck them in the damn dumpster at a minimum. Often it's 90% of your ideas get put into the dumpster. And if that is not happening, you are not a good game designer. Like, straight up. If 80% of your ideas at some point in development did not find their way into the garbage can, you are a bad game designer. Are we clear on this? There's no game designer in the world where, more than like 70% of their ideas are worth keeping and or putting in the game. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to end the video here because I do believe I'll just start ranting and rambling, not ranting, and day is full, boys.